Hellen Keller learns to speak. Hellen Keller was born in 1880 in America. When she was a little more than a year old, an illness left her both blind and deaf. But she not only learned to read and speak, but also went to college. This text from her book, The Story of My Life, tells us how she got over some of her difficulties. The full name of Hellen Keller was Helen Adams Keller. She was born in America in the year 1880. This text, which we are going to read, is from her autobiography, The Story of My Life. Here we shall read how Hellen Keller, in spite of being deaf and blind, learned to read and speak, thus overcoming the problems and difficulties in life. I cannot remember what happened during the first month after my illness. I only know that I sat in my mother's lap or clung to her dress as she went about her walk at home. My hands felt every object and noted every moment. In this way, I learned many things. The story is in the first person narrative. That means I in the text refers to Hellen Keller, who speaks about herself. She says that although she could not remember anything about the initial days and months after her illness, but she remembered that she used to sit on her mother's lap and hold her mom's dress tightly when her mom used to move about in the house for her walk. Hellen Keller could feel every object and even note the movements of things while they moved. In this way, she learned many things. Soon, I began to make crude signs. A shake of the head meant no, and a nod, yes. A pull meant come, and a push, go. If I wanted bread, I would imitate the way we cut slices of bread and buttered them. So very soon, she started making crude, that is simple signs like to say no, she used to shake her head from left to right. Whenever she used to move her head up and down, it meant a yes. She used to pull in order to call someone and her push meant to go. Hellen Keller used to imitate, that means copy the way we cut slices of bread and buttered them in order to indicate that she wanted bread. I do not remember when I first knew that I was different from other people. But I had noticed that my mother and my friends did not use signs as I did when they wanted anything done, but talked with their mouths. Sometimes I stood between two persons who were talking and touched their lips, but it did not work. This made me so angry at times that I kicked and screamed until I was tired. Hellen Keller did not exactly remember the time when she first came to know that she was different from other people. She noticed that her mother and her friends did not use signs while talking as she did. It was very difficult for her to accept this, and so she used to touch the lips of persons when they talked. But it was of no use as she could not do the same. This made her very angry, and in anger she used to kick and scream until and unless she used to get tired. The most important day in all my life was just before I turned 7. It was the day my teacher, Anne Mansfield Sullivan, came to me. For Helen, the day before her 7th birthday was the most important day in her life, because on that day her teacher, Anne Mansfield Sullivan, came to visit her. From the beginning, Miss Sullivan spoke to me as she would speak to any other child who could hear. The only difference was that she wrote the words on my hand instead of speaking them. If I did not know the words to speak my thoughts, she gave them to me. This went on for several years. Helen's teacher, Miss Sullivan, helped her endlessly to overcome the problems which she faced. She used to talk to Helen very normally, in the same way she used to talk to any other child. But the only difference was that Miss Sullivan used to write the words on Helen's hand instead of just speaking them. And whenever Helen felt short of words, her teacher used to give her the words to express her feelings and thoughts. The next important step was learning to read. As soon as I could spell a few words, my teacher gave me slips of cardboard. On those were printed words in raised letters. I quickly learned what each printed word stood for. After many years, when Miss Sullivan was successful in teaching Helen to speak, now it was time for Helen to learn reading. When Helen was able to spell a few words, Miss Sullivan gave her small pieces of paper on which words were printed in such a way that it could be felt by Helen. She was able to learn very quickly the printed words and their meanings. I then had to find the slips of cardboard and place them on the right object. For example, the words doll and bed. Then I had to put my doll on the bed with the words is on and bed placed beside the doll. Thus, I made a sentence with the words. After learning the words, Helen was able to make sentences by framing those words in correct order. For example, in order to learn the words doll and bed, she had to put her doll on the bed with the words is, on and bed to make a complete sentence. I soon moved on to reading printed books in raised type or braille. I always searched for the words I knew. I could not speak because I could not hear, and so I would sit on my mother's lap all day long and feel the movements of her lips. I had forgotten what talking was and I made many sounds. But there was one word I remembered from when I was a child: water. I pronounced it wa. Helen soon started to read printed books which were written in braille. That means the words were printed with raised round marks which blind people like Helen can read by touching. Helen used to search for the words which she knew. She used to sit on her mother's lap the entire day and try to feel the movements of her mom's lips. We learned that Helen used to make different types of sounds because she couldn't talk, but she was able to pronounce the word water as wa. Later, I had lessons from Miss Fuller. I shall never forget the surprise and delight I felt when I spoke my first whole sentence. It is warm. True, they were broken and stammering sounds, but they were human speech. After Miss Sullivan, Helen was taught lessons by Miss Fuller. She felt great happiness and was delighted when she spoke her first whole sentence. And that sentence is, it is warm. Though she could not pronounce the words clearly and had great difficulty in speaking, yet she was successful in overcoming her problems.